And welcome into Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins here, and today we've got a guest, Bill Partridge. Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate you having me.
Good to see you, John.
Hey, Ken.
You been on the road a lot?
Good to see you, of course. Yes,
well,
sir.
yeah, if you're alive, you're on the road.
You got it.
Good to see you, sir. But we brought Bill in because we wanted to kind of jimmy up the show to bring a little bit of, what we want to call spice. I don't say he'd be spice.
At least spice.
We want to spice it up. We want to bring in some different things for you. Our whole intent here is to bring you up to date on things that he's the best law enforcement we got, both of us know. So we thank you for coming today, Bill.
I appreciate you having me.
John, before we get started, I want to say something's on the news right now as we sit here. Is this attack on Israel?
Yes, sir.
The biggest thing in my lifetime, I think, even more than 9/11 in some reasons, that this was such a cruel, these people beheading children and things that didn't happen with ISIS even. And the biggest problem I have with it is our students in the colleges protesting against Jews. And we're going to have a problem down the line. These kids in their 20s hating the Jews. This is similar to me of the Holocaust.
Well, the problem is they don't understand, and they're not smart enough to understand the history of the entire process, let alone understanding what's actually going on in the Middle East today. That is a major problem. And Ken, I know one of the things that you just introduced was that you thought this was one of the most unbelievable events that's occurred in your lifetime, but I will remind you of the 1967 Six-Day War and what happened then, and they took out the folks that were trying to invade them at that time in a 6-day period. Now, this has been ongoing for almost a month now, but I can tell you this, the resolve of Benjamin Netanyahu and the support that he will have from the United States is going to help them resolve this issue, and I think that it'll be resolved before Thanksgiving. But I can also say that if it wasn't for the poor leadership that we have in Washington with President Biden and the chaos that we recently experienced in the Congress, you would not have even seen this, because they know what they're doing. They've done what they've done to try to make a point that whenever our leadership is weak, they're going to take advantage of that, which is what they've actually done.
Yeah, I had a captain that worked for me out at the depot, and he was with me about 90 days, and he and I were walking between two buildings one day, and I asked him, I said, why do those other countries over there fear Israel so much, Israel Army? And he slapped me in the chest. He says, where is USS Pueblo? Now, those that know, the USS Pueblo was our ship that was taken hostage by the North Koreans. He said, if you give Israel USS Pueblo, we'll go get our ship. The difference between, he said, America, he says, we can go get our ship. So you're right. If Netanyahu if they hadn't had all this diplomatic stuff, he'd have already been to the sea. But he's going to win it. And what's left, I don't know. But there'll be no Hamas to damage it.
No, and he's clearly the leader that Israel needs at this time in order to make sure that that takes place.
And Bill, from your perspective as the chief law enforcement officer, those colleges are up north and the Midwest and whatever. But that will eventually come to your schools and everybody else's schools. These young kids are going to hear what's cool, peer pressure. What do you have? You got a lot of people in the school. I mean, you got people in the school that got the ear to the street, so to speak. But does the average city have some kind of plan to deal with this kind of thing?
Well, they certainly should, especially your university cities, where you have a large student population of college students. They really need to have a plan available and a plan ready in case they have to enforce it. And what we're seeing right now across our country in our schools and our universities is just ridiculous. I mean, they honestly don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And, well, I think a lot of them ran with that New York Times report that said that the bomb, that Iran bomb that Hamas fired and it fell short. They claimed that Israel did that, and it got out there so fast they've never been able to pull it back. These people are saying that blaming all that, the bombing of the hospital, blaming that on Israel, and it never got pulled back enough. They apologized for it.
Yeah, it's like the old saying, a lie travel all the way around the world before the truth get its pants on.
Absolutely.
But when you have a major news organization taking reports from a terrorist group, you've got a problem there.
Absolutely. Well, it's something that we're in Oxford, Alabama today, but it could be in Oxford, Alabama. And you got the University of Oxford here. You said,
Some people refer to the high school as that.
That's what I said, yeah. So anyhow, let's go to the next item. And we got a new speaker, John. Mike Johnson is our new speaker after all that ruckus in the House. You've been in politics a lot. What do you think that's going to do for us or against us?
Well, I think the benefit is having strong established leadership, and Congressman Johnson, now Speaker Johnson, has the confidence of the Republican caucus and obviously several Democrats as well. And I think his ability to coalesce that strength and that leadership is going to help set us back on the right path to accomplish the things that need to be accomplished by the Congress, especially with a continuing resolution for funding and other things. But I feel very confident in his strength as far as Israel is concerned as he continues to move the Congress forward and work with the Senate to make sure that the legislative body is where it needs to be in relationship to the entire program for the United States government.
And the fact that he's a God-fearing man.
Yes, sir.
And that we've needed that for a long time.
No doubt about it. And we'll see you back here in just a few minutes after this first commercial break. Thanks for joining us again this week.
And welcome back to Brainstorming America. I'm Ken Rollins here with Chief Partridge, the Chief of Police Oxford, and John Merrill. John, well, let's go give Bill something here, Bill.
Well, Ken, before we do, let's make sure for our unanointed viewers that are joining us today who may not know Chief Partridge, and I can't imagine there are very few people in the state, especially people in law enforcement, that don't know him, but I do think it's important to make sure that we introduce him to the audience. And Bill Partridge is one of the most outstanding law enforcement officers in the state of Alabama. Actually, I know that Ken already introduced that to you as viewers, but I think you should know that his leadership in the city of Oxford, as far as law enforcement is concerned, is unprecedented and unparalleled in any one of the other 464 municipalities in the state. What he's encouraged his mayor and his city council to do in expanding the services that are provided by his particular department and the way that they provide those, the work that he's done with Jacksonville State University, the work that he's done in the East Alabama Crime Center, all of those things have set standards for excellence throughout the state of Alabama. His leadership as a police officer, who was actually hired by my uncle, Stanley Merrill, who was his predecessor as the chief of police, and now has surpassed my Uncle Stanley's leadership to expand the department and to offer all kinds of things that are really, as I said before, unparalleled in other municipalities. I think it's important to understand that when you have law enforcement leaders like Chief Partridge, you're able to accomplish a lot of things and you're able to solve a lot of problems before they're ever introduced. So we are excited to have you with us today, Chief, and I know that Ken has been looking forward to this day for a long time. So go ahead, Ken. I just want to make sure
I just want to do a
that.
public service announcement on to what you just said. If you're a bad guy out there, and you coming here from Atlanta, Birmingham, Dallas, where you're going to, and you come through a city named Oxford, don't bring no nonsense. Don't bring none of your shenanigans, because this man will put you in jail. Oxford is known for being a drug-free, problem-free, so you're in trouble if you come to Oxford. So that's just for you folks that want to act up. Don't do it in Oxford. Would I be correct, Chief?
Well, I appreciate those kind words.
Yeah,
Ken. We try our
let's-
best.
And Chief, let's say this too. There's a more succinct way to say what Ken just said. If you're a pusher, meet the shover.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
It's always good to know that. But I say that for another reason, because a lot of cities are soft on crime, and this is hard boiled. There ain't no soft crime allowed in the city of Oxford. I can tell you, because I live here and I know what's going on. And this is just not the place to do it. You can go through the map and go Google. You could probably use Google, couldn't you?
Probably
And find
so.
all these places that you can act up. But don't look at Oxford.
I appreciate
Skip
that,
over it.
Ken.
'Cause every week we look in our newspaper and we get to see your faces. If you decide to take something that don't belong to you or whatever, we see it. They post you out there and make you famous. I mean, there's people now that I'm looking for to go get their autograph that they put in jail. Anyhow, we got a new law that was just passed, Bill, and I don't know how new it is, that concealed carry.
Yes, sir.
How does that work? I've got a gun.
Well,
and I can
concealed carry, the way it was passed by the legislature, allows you to carry a concealed weapon without a permit. Prior to that, you had to have a permit from your county sheriff to be able to carry that weapon concealed. You could always carry constitutionally open carry, which means the gun is on the outside so a law enforcement officer can see it. But since this concealed carry bill was passed, it's raised some serious officer safety concerns across the state, because now individuals who have those weapons on them or in their car, we don't know if they legally can have them or not, or if they're a convicted felon. So it has created some officer safety issues since it's been passed.
That's why I ask you, because I know I've got a permit in my pocket to carry, but these people that walk around them on the hips, open carry, you know what they got. But I was thinking, boy, even when you open the door of a car and you don't know where it is in the console or whatever, that's a little bit more scary than to see it laying in the seat. Just knowing where that weapon is, and
well,
I just wonder what that was.
It has created, like I said, an officer safety issue across our state. You know, most people think now that they don't have to have a permit at all, but if you leave the state of Alabama and go to Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi, you have to have a permit, because if you go across into Georgia to Douglasville and you get stopped by a police officer and you have a concealed weapon and you have no permit, then they're going to arrest you. So I think that's something that hasn't been told a lot.
Yeah, what about a concealed weapon that has 70 rounds in the chamber?
I've never seen a concealed weapon with 70 rounds in the chamber.
Well,
Ken.
Bill, Joe Biden said there's something.
Well, that doesn't surprise
He
me.
says we don't need no more of them.
That doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
Chief,
Yeah.
would you explain just a minute one of the things when an individual is pulled over for a violation, traffic violation, or a suspect issue? Tell me and tell the viewers exactly why now the protocol is not to address the driver from the driver's side, but to address the driver from the passenger side.
Absolutely, be glad to. One of the things that we teach law enforcement officers now is not to do a driver's side approach, especially on the side of the highway. And the reason for that is for the safety of the officer. People nowadays are either on their phones, they're eating, they're distracted, and they tend to hit the officers who are standing on the side of the road. So now we do what's called a passenger side approach, is where the officer will get out of his vehicle, go around his vehicle to the passenger side of the suspect vehicle and engage the driver from that location, just so it's safer that they're not standing on the side of a busy highway.
Outstanding. Well, one of the things that a lot of changes take place as far as law enforcement protocol is concerned, and a lot of times people are uneducated as to why those things are occurring, and I always felt like it was about officer safety, and that's preeminent when you're involved, because those individuals work for you, and each and every day you want to make sure that when they come to work they're able to return safely to their homes. And that's the most important thing that you can see for each and every one of your officers each and every day. And we want you to return safely to the third and final segment of this week's episode of Brainstorming America right after this break.
Welcome back to Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins, and I'm here with Oxford Police Chief Bill Partridge and John Merrill, former Secretary of State, the only Secretary of State I can ever talk about, because I didn't know there's any others but him. John, before we let Bill get out of here, I got another question for him. Are there plenty of jobs for policemen in Oxford? I ask that for a reason.
Yes, sir. We have jobs opening in Oxford. We have jobs open across the state of Alabama and across the United States. Just for Alabama, for instance, there's usually have between 15 and 16,000 law enforcement officers across the state of Alabama. That's city, county, state. And right now we're down to around 11 to 12,000. So that shows you the type of decrease in coverage that our agencies are facing across the state right now.
So you need some officers for failing.
Yes, sir.
I noticed in the Facebook or something, You just swore in a couple the other day, and these guys and girls are in their 20s. They're young ones. They got
Yes, sir.
a ability to spend some time on the
Yes,
force.
sir. We certainly hope so.
So you're looking at somebody be there 25, 30 years. But
Let me ask you a question, Chief. Tell us what kind of individual you're looking for as you attempt to recruit a law enforcement officer to join the force and to make a positive impact in the city of Oxford.
Well, a lot of people talk about the change that they want to see in our country, and they talk about the change they want to see in their community. Well, we'll give you an opportunity to be that change. And we're looking for exceptional individuals who have a clean background, that want the commitment to go out on the street every day and make a difference every day in our communities across the state. And I just spoke with Birmingham Chief Thurman a couple weeks ago at the airport, and he was talking about how many officers they were short. And I hear it all across the state from all of the chiefs on how they need officers because they're so short. And there's definitely plenty of them out there that can be employed. The problem is we've seen over the last decade and a half of our country degrading our police officers from the news media standpoint, from social media and that type of thing. And I think that's a concerted effort to make the profession, or to weaken the profession, I should say. And I think until we improve those and we realize that these men and women every day put on that uniform and go out and risk their lives to protect our communities and actually take a bullet for people in the public who were standing out here protesting against them, as we saw in Dallas a few years ago, where they were protesting the police, and then you had an active shooter, and the next thing you know, they're protecting the individuals who were protesting against them. So it is an honorable profession. There are plenty of openings across our state, across our country, and we're looking for those exceptional individuals to fill those spots.
I want to tag on to what John said, was talking about the stopping of a vehicle on the interstate or whatever. The one thing that I've talked about over the years that I fear as a law enforcement officer would be to pull over a car at 11, 12 o'clock at night, walking up to the window. When the person in the car got those tinted windows, the advantage is with the person in the car. What these officers have to go through, the risks they put themselves at. Somebody be sitting there with a gun in their hand. You would not even see it till you was in the car nearly. And that's one thing your officers face.
Well, they have to face that with the knowing and the knowledge of the training that they have and how to approach those situations to keep themselves and the public safe. And there's policies and procedures that we go through every day, and we train every year on how to do that safely, just as that driver's side or the passenger side approach instead of going to the driver's side. There are things that they're taught to do to make sure that they can do it as safely as possible. And you're right, Ken, you never know who you're walking up to. We have an interstate running through our city, and we have plenty of bad people who travel from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and you never know who you're approaching.
Where we're sitting right now, a shooting took place out here with a guy that had triple murderers, I remember. And we had our guy on the tower, up here adjusting the tower for what we call Coldwater Mountain. And bullets from an AK-47 was whizzing over him and below him. He didn't know whether to go up or down. And that was just across the street. Nobody ever expect that. Cracker Barrels right there and all that. You remember that day, I'm sure.
I remember it very well.
Yeah, so we get enough of that. So we're waiting on this new Green Deal that Biden's going to throw out there, and it's when you hear this thing about the budget, the new Green Deal that's in it is going to affect something that I think all of us would agree. The truckers fuel is causing so much bad emissions that the president's going to attack with using EPA to put sanctions against the truck drivers that use diesel in their trucks. They got nothing else, and they even talking about electric tractor and trailers. And that our food chain is going to be affected by what he's doing. He's already affected everything we're doing by gasoline. Now he's going after the truckers, and everything we get is brought by truck or train. What's your thought?
Well, look, Ken, I feel like unless they make some major changes in the way that the batteries are able to provide the power for those electronic vehicles, then the electronic vehicle is going to go the way of the buggy whip. And that's going to be a problem for all the people that are dedicating all this resources and all of these dollars toward the construction of these vehicles and these charging stations, because this is something that's being generated by the government and not by the market. And that's always a problem whenever the government is behind it and not the market. And that's why we need to let the market drive the conversation.
And I saw yesterday that the cobalt mine, the mine that make cobalt up in Minnesota, and one other place, I think Wyoming, whatever, was shut down by environmental because they didn't want that to leak into the waters. So now the only place we get cobalt is China. There was another product, I don't know if it's zinc or whatever, it's in China. So the vehicle that we got, the head of the Biden's people that are in charge of the cars, he was asked a point blank question, said, if you can't buy this product in the United States, where are you going to get it? He said, China. Everything to have an electric car is China. They have got, so it would seem like, if you didn't know better, that the person making these decisions had a connection to China because they want them to get all the product that they're putting out there that's required. This vehicle that's going to be shoved on us.
Certainly. Chief, we've only got about 30 seconds left, so tell us what you'd like to share with the listeners and viewers before we go about your opportunity to serve the public.
Well, first of all, I've been extremely fortunate over my 37-year career here to be employed by an agency in a city that actually supports their law enforcement officers. And from your uncle, my predecessor, and my mentor, Stanley Merrill, I owe him a great deal of where I am today and the type of person I am. He taught me a lot.
And let me say this as we're closing up. You're very fortunate to be in such a great city, and this city is very fortunate to have you. And we hope you'll join us again next week for the next episode of Brainstorming America.